Hello, welcome to the Chaplain's Compass with John.
And Elise. I am super excited, John, about this episode today. We're talking about some new things happening in chaplaincy and the Association of Professional Chaplains, like our upcoming conference and a mentorship program. So we have with us today Martha Rucker, who's the past APC president, and she's a staff chaplain with Ascension St. Thomas West in Nashville, Tennessee. We also have Michael Lee, who's the chaplain manager at Memorial Hermann Southeast Hospital. He also serves on the Commission for Certification Committee. And Martha and Michael have both built the ECC mentorship program that's active now at APC. And Michael is serving as the chair of the 2026 APC conference. So we have a lot to talk about today. So welcome, Martha and Michael. We always like to ask our guests a little bit about their origin story of becoming a chaplain and where you are now. So would you mind telling us a little bit about your journey to spiritual care and chaplaincy, and just what, looking back, what either feels more different to you, or how has your role changed over the years?
I knew that I was called into some sort of, as a Christian, some sort of ministry when I was 16, and went to college, majoring in religion and philosophy, and started serving a church. And it was absolutely horrible. The people were great. I just didn't like the whole bit of the church. So I went to go change my major, and my parents told me no because they were paying for my college education. And but I went and met with my advisor, who said, just give me a week or two if you trust me. I went to a very small school. So a couple weeks later, he pulled up. I got into his car and we drove to the local hospital, and he introduced me to the chaplain. And from the moment that I walked into the hospital, I knew that, okay, I don't know how or when or what this is going to look like, but this feels like I need to be in this kind of space. So, started then focusing on, didn't change my major, and then went to seminary and really bucked the system in seminary. And if anybody kind of knows me, knows that I might push back a little bit on things. And they wanted me to serve a church, and I kept saying, I don't want to serve a church, and I see the value, but I don't want to serve a church. I just want to do hospital work. So did my first unit of CPE while in seminary, and then did my residency straight after. So I just kind of always knew from that time in college. And I think what kind of just changed for me is I've changed. Uh, I've grown, I've evolved. Um, and I think just overall, what has changed is just so many things are more streamlined now. Life as a chaplain with technology is so much easier than it was with the big packets, mailing them in, and everything paper. It's a blessing and a curse, technology. But there's a lot that has changed. But I would say, for most part, I've changed and I've grown, and we'll probably get more to that as the questions unfold in this time together.
Yeah, that's wonderful. What about you, Michael?
I never, ever, ever thought I'd be in ministry. It just wasn't my path. What I ever thought would be my path. I was telling someone this morning, reason I went into ministry, I grew up poor. I remember being a kid and was Catholic, and we had to do something called First Communion. And at the time, my father left. My mom barely made any money. My mother is from Haiti, and it was hard for her to get jobs. And we were down in the basement of the church, and my mom was sharing how much money she had to spend for the communion classes, and she started crying in front of the priest. And when I said to her, "Mom, why are you crying?" She's like, "We don't have any money. I can't pay for this." And so really early on, I'm like, I need to make money. So I went to Wall Street. Never, ever, ever thought I'd be in ministry. Never had an inkling of it, even though I've been church my whole life, and it was church is just something I kind of did and went to. So I worked in Wall Street. Started in 1994. Worked in stock exchange, worked on trading desks, did all kinds of stuff like that. Was never happy. And the best way I can describe Wall Street, I think we've all been there. Have y'all ever dated someone where they could be really attractive, but they make you miserable? Have any of y'all had that? That's your an amen, right? So that's what Wall Street was like. So all of a sudden, on September 11th, 2001, I was at work. It was the most beautiful day out. And I was sitting at a trading desk looking at my computer like this. To my left was my boss. He was the trader we worked with, what's called fixed income. And then all of a sudden he said, Mike, is that plane really close to the building? So I looked outside and all of a sudden I watched the first plane and I watched the first plane angle and then hit Tower 1. And I saw the explosion. Then all of a sudden, I called my mom on the phone. I'm like, Mom, look at the TV. This happened. She's like, I don't see it. I'm like, it just happened. And then it hit second plane hit Tower 2. And funny enough, this is actually my nameplate. When I used to work in the World Trade Center, this is from Tower 2. I worked at Morgan. Yes, that's from trade centers. And so when that happened, obviously it was awful. I finally left. I got to my mom. Thank God I was at her home when the towers fell. When we finally got back to work, it happened on a Tuesday. When we finally got back to work on a Monday, I'm sitting in the meeting and we're talking about all the money we made on this stuff and all the money we lost in our meeting. And I'm sitting there going, what the hell am I doing? Why am I here? And so for anyone going back to relationships, we're like, I can't be with you anymore. It's over. And yes, that's what it was like that day. And I had no idea that I wanted to be in ministry. But and I looked at all these kinds of things. And months later, I'm with my mother in Greenwich Village, and we're having some beer and some burgers. And I showed her I was reading the Bible. We didn't really do that in the church I went to in New York City. And she goes to me in her beautiful Haitian voice. She goes, Michael, did you ever think of going to seminary? And I was like, no, I don't want to go to seminary. I want to be rich. I want a big house. But God used my mom that day to put that in there. And then all of a sudden it went and it went and it went and I couldn't shake it. And I visited Union Theological Seminary, went to New York City, and I sat in a church history class, and it felt better than any Wall Street thing did. But I finished seminary, and my goal, I wanted to be a preaching, teaching pastor. I wanted to, I was influenced by Arthur Calejandro, who is my old pastor, and Tim Keller, who is also an old church, went to New York City. I want to be a mixture of them. In my ordination process, I had to do CPE. I did CPE, met my wife in CPE actually, and I had no interest in being a chaplain. So when I was done, like, do you want to be a chaplain? I'm like, no, I don't want to be a chaplain. But I needed a job, follow this girl, and then when she moved, and my wife, and I was a hospice chaplain after CPE, and I loved it, and I just stuck with it, and I was a hospice chaplain for years. And the thing is that I didn't add, 5 years before 9/11, my father died. My father got cancer, and it was a very quick, and it was just horrible, all of it. Just we know the mess and the conveyor belt that healthcare could be. And so I say all the time, I want to be the chaplain that I wish I had. And so now I get to care for staff, I get to care for colleagues, I get to care for these patients. And so that was my road to chaplaincy.
Your stories are so different, but what's beautiful, and especially in relation to the theme that we're exploring today about mentorship, is the richness of mentors that you had in your stories who saw something in you and said, let me show you this possibility that led you to chaplaincies. That's pretty cool.
Having looked back at, where you started and where you came and to where you are right now, I'd love to hear what are y'all's thoughts regarding what are the greatest unmet needs in spiritual care right now?
The greatest unmet needs in spiritual care right now. So do you mean as a profession in general, with hospital, with what just want to be clear about your question?
It's general for a reason. It can be professionally, like what are the unmet needs in terms of raising up evidence-based chaplains or chaplains that are like, what are the greatest professional needs or the needs in the clinical realm, or from your vantage point, like where do you see there's a big unmet, there's a gap?
One unmet need I think has changed. I've seen that a lot of seminaries are having a chaplain track, and not as this little cute little thing. It is, no, this is what we do. One of my friends, wonderful colleague here, Dr. Jacqueline Williams, has a chaplaincy program, a Fuller down here in Houston. My alma mater, Union Theological Seminary, I believe is doing the same. So that's one good thing that's happened. The second thing I think that needs to happen is chaplains need to be trained in, I think, understanding trauma. That happens a lot. I also believe we need to really be trained in being self-promoters. And I know some people go, ugh, with this, we got to get over it. We do. I think of the folks that are sadly, unfairly losing jobs other places. And so I believe I remember when I've been here at this hospital, at this campus for about 3 years or so. One of the first things I did was to go into the C-suite. I'm the manager here, it's a little easier. And I said to the CEO, I would like to meet you monthly. I said to the CNO, I would like to meet you monthly. I go into and when I left my old campus, I said to the guy that took my job as manager, I said, every day you need to go to the C-suite and get coffee. I don't care if you like coffee. Go get coffee, go get water, talk to them. One of the things that chaplains really need to do is we do incredible things. I think of how we decrease lawsuits that can happen to places because we calm people down. I think of moral distress that happens to nurses because of the conveyor belt that healthcare can be, and we can talk to them and advocate for things. There's so much that we do, but if we just stay in our lane and like, oh, just let me pray, just let me listen, that's not enough. We have to be trained to go in, see where we fit in, but also know that we may be overlooked because people don't get who we are and what we do. And the way that happens is a podcast like this. The way that happens is we have to get to know the bean counters. We have to get to know the leadership and then understand what are the needs that they need. We have to take care of the communities we find ourselves in. And the last thing with that is I work for an incredible organization, but at the old campus, they wanted someone that was just merely professional chaplain. I can do that. Worked in Wall Street. I can do that. At this campus, they want a pastor. And I love doing that. If I acted more like a pastor there, they wouldn't have liked it. It wouldn't have fit well. It's just not who they were. So I became the chaplain that they needed. Here at this campus, they clearly want a pastor. They want someone more Christian. I'm an evangelical Christian. I'm a Christian, but I'll talk about something later of how APC affected what I do here. But we have to be the chaplain that our institutions need, who we think we're supposed to be imposing on them. We're not supposed to impose ourselves, whoever we are. That is one of the biggest things I think chaplains need to do.
That's wonderful. Yeah, integration and being able to become part of the culture and be what what they need at that location is so important. I love also what you had to say. The piece we're dealing with this where I work and getting people to. I think a lot of our managers are wonderful promoters of what they do, but creating talking points for the frontline leaders so that the people who are the frontline clinical staff are able to communicate up the chain what chaplains do as well. So they're not just hearing it from us because, yeah, I've drank the Flavor Aid and so have all my colleagues, but being able to have clinical people as well so they don't just hear it from us, they hear it from, if a nurse says it, oh my gosh, if an attending says it, yeah, they're going to hear it a lot more effectively than, oh, well, yeah, Chaplain John's always talking about how great his team is.
So my boss, wonderful, incredible leader, he'll always ask the managers and directors, what do you want us to learn as a whole for the next year? And we've learned about trauma and this wonderful things. But one thing I will always be asking, and what we'll do is I've been saying to my team here is we need to partner with marketing. And while that sounds like, what are you doing there? We're supposed to be, no, chaplains should not be suffering the way we are within our institutions if we're promoting, teaching what we're doing. So I believe we work with some things like marketing and we show our Schwartz rounds. We show what ethics are. We show these little things we're doing. We have these little classes. Actually, behind me on that list are these in-services I want to teach one day, even on healthy relationships or moral distress. And so if we are serving our community, Seth Godin wrote a book, I forgot what it's called, but he says you have to be in a way where you're irreplaceable. And I believe chaplains, with what we do, and they won't ask like, hey, Michael, Martha, Lisa, John, come. We have to say, here's what we do. Here's the great stuff we do. I see you've got these issues. Here's how we can do it. And you constantly do that because there's going to be a crisis and they'll say, I remember what Elise said. I remember what Martha or John said. So that's why I feel this way, because no chaplain should be losing a job The C-suite should going, how can we hire more because they make our institution better?
Well, I dream about a day when there will be a chaplain in the C-suite, like there'll be a chief of spiritual care or something like that, mission, where it will be so integrated into leadership that the- it will affect all parts of the organization. But Martha, where do you see that we have room to grow? Like what are your thoughts as you're listening to Michael?
Well, as Michael talked earlier, I mean, the two of us have such similar thoughts and ideas. Truly, that I think all of that ties into advocacy, and not only individual advocacy and how do I advocate for myself as a chaplain, but how APC can build upon advocacy and provide resources, especially for those single chaplain shops where, people kind of feel, or even hospice, because y'all are out there kind of driving on your own and oftentimes feeling pretty isolated. So at least that's what I've heard. I've never worked in hospice, but I've heard that from people who have worked in hospice. So that piece of advocacy on how do we step up to the plate, and how do we not wait to receive the invitation, but we have our ear to the ground and we know this is a space where we belong. They don't know it yet, but this is a space where we belong, and we find a way to inch our way in. And that's just in its advocacy, but it's also confidence, and it's building this level of confidence through our competency. And I think there's a lot of room to be able to grow with that. And I think one of the things that I had introduced about myself is what has changed most is myself, that I would have probably, 20 years ago been more of the flower on the wall. But stop being the flower on, stop blending into the wallpaper. Stop, just make yourself known, because we are competent and confident, and fake it till you make it in a lot of cases. And that's okay. But would do it with a level of confidence. But that comes with advocacy. It comes with us advocating for ourselves. I mean, Michael and I both share a story of someone who really advocated for us in our work and pushed us to something that I didn't even know existed, and Michael didn't want to do. So, but we had these people advocating for this work and for what we do. And we need to continue doing that for each other.
So you brought up hospice chaplaincy. Both of you mentioned it, and Martha, you were talking about being isolated. So that was me when I first started chaplaincy. I was a hospice chaplain, and I was the only chaplain on my team. So going to the APC conference for the first time was so amazing for me, because I looked around the room and I saw all these people who got me and understood me and had were like-minded and had ideas, and it was so exciting. So I'm excited about this year's conference, Michael, and I'm wondering, as planning chair of the conference, what are you most excited about?
Oh my gosh, there's so much. One, the city. Just thank you to APC leadership for getting us right in New Orleans. We are 2 blocks or so, I think, maybe 3, but I think 2 blocks away from Bourbon Street, which, depending on who you are, you may want that. But just saying. But even, for instance, if you've seen the video, like outside the hotel is a beignet place. On the other side of the hotel is like a jazz place. I mean, that rocks. So that's awesome too. As Elise just said, I'll never forget. Oh, I'll never forget going to my first APC conference. And I'm like, oh my God, these are my people. It's fascinating. We're a special group. I mean, I don't mean that in this, that we are. There's just a uniqueness of being a chaplain. Why? Because the work we've done of CPE, there's all these things that have been brushed away, pressed, evolved. We just see the world differently. And so when you're around when you're around a group of folks that kind of get it, that have a humility, that are intelligent, that are caregivers, and they're like, they get you and they actually listen. It's ridiculous. And whether they're an evangelical Christian or a devout Muslim, a humanist, it's incredible. That's number one. Number two is the speakers. We've got these 2 wonderful plenary speakers, Lamarad Owen. I look forward to his talk. that will be very engaging, very enlightening. There's just challenges happening all over the world. So to get voices, and Maureen Shelton is our other plenary speaker. I know y'all interviewed her, and I can't wait. Like, I need that, because what we do, there's so many times we go into these crazy moments, and I go back to, we talked about C-suite. They have their own stresses. It could be their lives. It could be conflicts with doctors. We go into the emergency room or hospice. I was a hospice chaplain for years, and there are these families that are having intense moments. And so when we learn more of this compassionate work of self-compassion, leading with compassion, all that Maureen will talk about, we will leave better. Other things I'm looking for is, I got 2 words: conga line. Okay, conga line. Saturday. I mean, that's what's up, yo. On Saturday night, little cool in the gang action. Celebrate. It is the best time of the conference. If you haven't been there, especially if you are gonna you're gonna walk up on the stage, hear your name called, that you're board certified for palliative care or for board certification. It's great to hear your name, but when it's all done, it is celebration time. And so when you're new, you're psyched, but all of us that have been there, we're pumped for you too. So there's like high fives. It's the best, and also all the other education. Here's for instance, as I mentioned, just to say my theology, I'm a Christian. I would say evangelical Christian. I wasn't born in the way. You come from that, grew up, kind of not much of anything when I was a kid. And I remember going to the Muslim prayer room at the conferences, and a one friend of mine, a very talented chaplain, Kwabe. And Kwabe was actually on my team, devout Muslim, hijab, and enjoyed talking to her, and she led the Muslim prayer room. And so, but when I was there and I saw how beautiful it is, the rugs, the on the wall, the what have you, it inspired me. So when I came back to my hospital, and well, they very much like having a very Christian pastor. I went in and I went to my Muslim doctors and nurses, and I said, "Do you need this?" Because we'd be in the chapel, and I'd be praying. When a Muslim woman walks in for prayer, to respect her, I will walk out, because she won't be there with men in the masjid. And so they said, yes, we'd like that. And then as soon as I knew the staff wanted that, I walked over to the C-suite and I told them the need for that. And within months, we had a male masjid and a female masjid for them, because of conference. These incredible things. And I would joke to them, I'm like, this is from the evangelical Christian, advocating, because that's what we do as chaplains. We take care of everybody. Whether they believe what we believe or they don't believe what we believe, it doesn't matter. We are here to serve. That's it. And help and promote. And because of the APC conference, I saw the need for that. And I learned all these other things of self-care. So y'all got to go, because whether it's the fun, whether it's being with your people, the great food, the conga line, it's going to be incredible. The beignets.
No, I was blessed to. I met Kwabe last year, and it's just a delightful clinician, delightful professional. And you're absolutely right. And meeting people, that's for me the biggest thing. Getting to know the people, that's changed my life. In fact, Alicia and I met beforehand, but one of the times when we got to see each other again in person was at my first APC conference in Louisville. So it was.
So we had communicated through emails and connections like that in Kentucky. But yes, making that connection in person, I think, was really different for networking and getting to know each other better as colleagues. And look where we are today, co-hosting this podcast, which is really cool. So people may think, it's not really needed to be in person anymore now that you have all these virtual meetings and webinars. What do you think is the importance or the benefit of an in-person gathering, even now?
I'll give a short answer. We're people. We connect. And while we can connect in this different way, through virtual, it is a different level of connection when we are face to face and we're having a coffee together or a cocktail, or we're listening to a plenary speaker together, or we're in one of the sessions together because we all have this same interest in these breakout things. And so we are people, simply put. And I don't think that Michael and I would have never been partnered up for this mentoring program had we not been in person, because I literally walked up to them. So I don't think that would have ever happened on a webinar, ever.
There's a difference between going to like a Lady Gaga concert or a Van Halen, feeling that, or Taylor Swift concert. There's a difference between going to a concert, being surrounded by people who love what you love, right? Love who you love. They love these singers. They want to sing the songs because they know it, and it becomes like a tribe, a good, wonderful tribe of folks that are similar. They believe what you believe. They love what you love, and so that's when things. There's a difference of being there in the crowd and just watching on the screen or your headphones. It's an entirely different experience. That's number one. Number two is even like church services. Like you can go to church or temple or masjid or what have you, however you worship. And there's a difference going back to, we talked about the Muslim programs of men next to men doing what they do, or folks going to church or temple, and you're singing to God and supporting one another and listening to one another, than just watching services. And there's nothing wrong with watching services on TV. People do it. There's some days, COVID, we all did that. There's something completely different about being with friends and talking to one another. And lastly, as Martha just said, the mentorship program, and please, I hope folks want to become part of this if they want. We would have never talked. I think we created a nice little friendship. This would have never happened if we didn't see each other there at the conference. You cannot replace what happens in person. You cannot replace even the networking, working that can happen, or just even the support. Some of us are going through really, really hard times, whether in our lives or in our careers. Some of us don't have, I have a great boss, I'm a great leader, but some of us don't have great bosses and great leaders. And so when we go and talk to other colleagues from all around the country, and we see it's not just me. I mean, Henry Nouwen said, when we take our suffering out of its diabolical isolation, that's healing. So that's one of the things that happen when we're at conference.
Going to the conference, Alicia and I both have served on the education committee, subcommittee, and have worked with that. I think Alicia headed the subcommittee. And so I love, how do y'all discern the topics that are most critical for chaplains right now? What happens at the conferences? And yeah, tell me more about what thought process goes into what is presented, what is accepted, versus stuff that might be fantastic, but not necessarily for this type of conference.
I'll steal words of a pastor I went to called Tim Keller, and I'll say,
TK.
yes, he said how things could be, or the spiritual life could be centrifugal and centrifugal. First of all, thank you very much to Margaret Yoakum. Margaret, this past year, was the chair of the education committee, and she built a team around her. We can see the offerings that are there. And so going back to pulling things in, there are these workshops that are to be for our healing, our growth, our self-care, taking care of ourselves, because we need that. There's so many things that we encounter or see. Even if we've got good boundaries, we still get affected and hurt, or even learning things like boundaries. So there's items like that. The centrifuge talk about of moving out is how to help different communities. So I'm thinking of workshops helping transgender teens, of helping the military, of helping folks with end-stage Alzheimer's, with working with undocumented folks, unhoused folks. There are all the children, pediatrics, oncology. There are all of these classes, workshops that you'll take. I in the past was just like Alicia, the chair of education. How do we figure these out? We listen to the stresses and strains of what chaplains go through, and where we need to learn more about taking care of ourselves. Okay, let's find the classes that do that, or populations, or the issues that we need to take care of, and it needs to be better. Even research that's out there. One thing I did, I actually taught one, and was it 2021 with my colleagues here. It was called "How Can Chaplains Be Engaged in Anti-Racism Work?" That's just stuff we needed to do. And so while we want to do stuff, how do we collaborate? How do we whatever? So that's why and how we do what we do. It is, what are the needs? What are the hurts? what are the wounds, and what are things we need to learn so we can move forward, because we're always evolving as chaplains, or we should be always evolving as chaplains.
And it's a team effort. Yeah, it's not just one person, as Alicia knows. It's not just one person making these decisions, but it's, in this case, Margaret and a team that has been built. So, and you get all sorts of chaplains and working in a variety of different institutions. So, giving voice to the totality of chaplaincy.
That's really beneficial when you have different viewpoints and people from different settings coming together in the team saying, this is this is where we need to have conversations around, or these are some resources that we need. There are lots of opportunities this year to have extra CEs, from what I understand, because APC's changed in the format to where now you can count the time that you also spend looking at materials towards CEs. So there's so much, but sometimes you also have to take some time out and just meet with somebody and maybe skip a session and go have a cup of coffee with somebody, and that's really valuable too. So what would you say, Michael, are some, like, you've already mentioned a few, but some don't miss moments at the conference?
Don't miss moments. One of them is just the meals. You've got to go to the meals. So whenever there's a meal, of course, it's Saturday night celebration, but the meals where we get together, where we get to learn, that is just incredible. The plenary sessions. The plenary sessions are really important, because even if it's something where you may think, well, that's not for me, that's not my population, I don't have to deal with that. It doesn't matter, because you will still learn something. You'll learn that nugget that's there, that's helpful, going, oh, I never thought of that. That's another non-miss thing too. If you can, Alicia, you're absolutely correct. If you can see a friend, and you can say, let's have coffee, let's talk, let's have that time, that's incredible. So please go to workshops. Hopefully they're helpful. Another thing is, forgive me, I don't know if they're called ERGs. If y'all remember, there are these.
The special interest groups?
You must go to the SIGs. There's SIGs for chaplain leadership. There's SIGs for oncology. SIGs for emergency rooms. SIGs for ethics. I think I led that one last year. These SIGs are incredible, because if you're passionate, because of this year, I haven't done it, but if I could have, my hope is the SIG that met on ethics at conference, where we talked about things we need to do or best practice or what have you. My hope is that SIG would meet every month, or bi-monthly, or at minimum quarterly, where we support one another, because there is one for bereavement, and that's what they meet monthly. Yes, they meet monthly. They look at research and they talk, but it's not just that. It's supporting one another. As they say in New York City, kvetching with one another. Oy vey. And it's that human interaction, because all day long, whether you're driving in a car by yourself in hospice, or in a hospital setting and taking care of folks, you get depleted. And so when we go to a place where people take care of one another, where you're with your own people, learning, socializing, not responding to codes, breaking bread with one another, worshiping, you come back refreshed, you come back smarter, you come back wiser, and you come back with so many more tools. You kind of got to go, okay, which one am I going to use now? What am I bringing to my setting now? Or even for some folks, they may need a new job, and they may know someone now to say, hey, I met you, good to meet you. I want to move to, so my boss says, I want to retire from here. So just so we hear that, if God's willing. But there are some people that might want to move to Tennessee, or move to Kentucky, move to California. They may meet someone and say, hey, I met you. If there are openings, let me know. Does that make sense? These really important things are all possible when you come to a conference and you meet people face to face.
The term network can just be meaningless at times, but the ability to connect with people in that way, like at those the SIGs, and just when you attend those the lectures, being able to talk with the people afterwards about, okay, well, what were your thoughts about this? Like, what did are you able to use this at where you're serving? Where do you serve?
John Simon, the former president of APC, has this division that of working with leadership and promoting and developing a team and how we do that. When I met him and talking and we had some time to talk, it's one of those things where I felt I'm not alone. I'm not alone with this passion that I have, where I don't believe any chaplain should ever be let go from anywhere. And I saw it's not just me. Someone else feels the way I do. And for my other folks, it'd be issues of transgender teenagers and stopping suicide rate, or with veterans and supporting them. You go there, you see your people, you see you're not alone with your passions. That's why you got to go.
I see one other place. I know that a lot of people don't want to participate in this part of conference, but it's the business meeting. And how important to know as a member, a paying member of this association, to know what is happening, where we are in our savings, where the money is going, what are we doing with certification and education. It is just imperative. I mean, if we are paying members of this association, and it doesn't last long, it really doesn't. The business meeting is pretty quick, and then we have this open forum, these tables, where you can pick and choose where you want to go and ask or listen. You don't even have to ask any specific questions. You can just listen in these particular areas, and it's so important. And it's one of those disappointing things of just say, okay, there's not as many people here because it's a business meeting who really likes those things, but so imperative. You're not called upon. You don't have to, unless you're the treasurer, you're not getting up there and saying anything, certification chair, but to really know and have a better and a clearer understanding of what our association is doing.
I'm so glad you brought that up because it is a lot of important information that's shared in the business meeting. And you've served as the APC president, Martha, and you've led in many different ways at APC. So, what has leadership taught you, or what developments have you seen through your years serving with APC?
I was on the board, invited to be a part of the board to fill an open slot years ago. The ethics chairperson had some personal issues and had to leave. And so I was encouraged to apply, and I was the only person. Imagine that. I mean, there's not a flood of people wanting to be the ethics chairperson. So I became a part of the board, and I was pretty quiet. And at one point, my former supervisor, CPE supervisor, who was then the APC president, David Johnson, he said to me after a board meeting, or during a board meeting at a break, he said, "Martha, your voice matters and you need to speak up more." And I was like, "Ugh, you know, really? I'm just here to learn." Um, but those words stuck with me. And then fast forward, when I got the phone call from the nominating committee chairperson to say I was nominated to become secretary. And I said, "Well, if I become secretary, that means eventually I'm going to become president." And her response was, "Well, I was hoping that you weren't paying attention during that part of the board meeting," which, in all honesty, it was highly likely. But
They were trying to trick you in.
I know I had paid attention, and I was like, "I don't think that's me." And as a Christian, how that is just scripture is filled with the people who said, "Oh, no, not me. Are you kidding me?" And her response to me was, "Well, I'm going to let the Holy Spirit speak to you." So, yeah. So I accepted and then eventually became president. And you it changed it from a voting system then to a succession, where you filled all of the executive committee roles. One of the things for me, and I've said this, I think even up to this point, I am the only staff chaplain who has ever been on the executive committee and become president. And for me, I hold that very tenderly, that leadership my voice counts. And as David had reminded me, and that, and as so many other people in my life have told me, just go where you belong, and reminding me, and that this leadership is that to remind everybody in this association, you don't have to be middle management or upper management, but if someone else is calling out a gift in you, you better pay attention and be that leader. And that can be on a local level, it can be within APC, and then or you can find yourself as the president of the association. So I think for me, that was just this leadership of, because I really struggled with, I'm a staff chaplain. Like I am a staff chaplain. And while I go and find those places where I am meant to be and where pastoral care is meant to be, where chaplains are meant to be at the table, I still kind of like, oh, everybody who's gone before me is in this leader role, this formal leader role. And how as a staff chaplain, we can still find that space, and we can all find the space together. So not surprising to me. It was just made me more aware.
That's so funny though, because when I joined the board, I had the opposite question, which was, but I'm not a staff chaplain anymore. Um, and do I belong because I'm not doing the work day in and day out like I used to? Like I'm not as close to patient care as I used to be. I think it's so powerful to have that voice when you really understand the work of spiritual care. So,
No, in fact, I was just thinking that's so important to have that experience and to still be grounded within the everyday nuts and bolts of providing direct patient care. Because otherwise, like I know that working as I joke, I'm middle management, but at the same time, I my desire is to make sure that my skills, I don't lose those skills because they are perishable skills. So how am I remaining current on the trends? And also, how am I remaining current in actually actively providing that care? So no, when I hear just a staff chaplain, I go, oh no, but you're a staff chaplain.
well, in that story too, Martha, is another good example of mentorship where David Johnson said to you about your voice and then somebody else. So tell us about this mentorship program with APC. What made you approach Michael and say, let's do this?
What made me approach him was, John, as you're just saying, I want to still give back. And so finding those things, not always waiting to hear something. And I was in conversation with somebody at conference and I said, I really have an itch to do a little more. And she said, well, you probably should go talk to Michael Lee. Do you know him? I said, no. And she said, well, he's right over there. And she pointed. And I said, well, okay. So I had no idea what this was going to be about, really, other than he was working on a mentor program. So I walked over and asked if I could sit down. And it's Michael's baby, really. He's let me come along for the ride.
So where did the idea come from, Michael? What gap did you see that?
I've served, like many of us, I've served on a lot of committees, whether chair, presenter, what have you. And there are just some times that we've all been there where you're at the end of you're in the middle of the interview, at the end of the interview, and they've missed a few or quite a few, and you're like, did anybody prepare you? Or they'll even say, well, I had a mentor, this person helped me and this person helped me. And I'll even say right now, I because it would be rude. I don't want to say they were these folks of whatever that helped them, but it was to their detriment. And I'm like, this is not okay. You spend all this time writing, preparing, paying money, and then you fail. And quite a few of them, some of them really were not prepared and ready, but a whole bunch of them are smart, talented, gifted folks that just didn't have someone that looked at it with good eyes, that knew where things are now, because board certification expectations today in 2026 are a whole lot different than 1996 or maybe even 2000. So now we make sure our mentors are trained And where I got this idea from is I stole it. Thank you, Margaret Yoakum, who developed the certification specialist program. Because when I saw what she did, and it was like, wait a minute, we can do that too. So that's where it came from. It came out of the frustration and the sadness that I had seeing people fail. And then it came from the updated website, which really made a difference. And then seeing what Mark created, going, we can do that for mentorship. And I couldn't have done this without Martha.
Well, not to be inappropriate, but it usually takes 2 people or more to have a child. So since this might be your baby, Michael, then
I have a 10-year-old son. My son goes, Daddy, that's sus.
That's sus.
Yeah, that's right. It is sus. Gonna go and tell our spouses.
no cap.
No cap. That's another one. Yeah, no cap.
Okay, think of 6, 7 things that are wrong with that. So let's just move on. How does it work, Martha? Can you give us the rundown of how the program is set up, and how can candidates who are either thinking about certification or in the process of the certification process?
The old days, the responsibility was given from the APC office to the state reps. And then if you were in a state without a state rep, then you got sent to another state rep. And as the state rep for the state of Tennessee, I was inundated with people. I mean, from across the country. We don't have a state leader, blah, blah, blah. So this kind of came at a beautiful time, and we have created this this page on the a mentor page on the APC website. And as Michael and I have talked about, imagine this a dating website where there's a profile for the mentor, and there's a short bio, and the candidate can choose the mentor. So I'll have on there my hospital information, what my specialties are, how long I've been in the work, sexual orientation, denominational status. So they can choose based on it's like swiping left. I've never done that, but I guess that's swipe left on I like this person. And then it is up to the mentor when they're at capacity to let APC know that I'm at capacity. And that's the individual to make that decision. It's, it can be 2 or it can be 6. It's really up to the mentor. But once they don't have that capacity, they reach out to APC, and Kyle will then take our little bio and put us kind of in a filing cabinet, a virtual filing cabinet, until we reach back out and say, we're ready to go back on. So it's a much easier process. And it's the candidate choosing somebody, and then the 2 determining if this is going to be a good relationship. It's a process that is working well. I mean, at the beginning, it was just Michael and I on there. It was like, oh my gosh, we were getting so many contacts. It was unbelievable, but clearly a need among the people. We were just inundated.
So what kinds of support do the mentors provide that go beyond like CPE supervision? And why have this program? I know that there's that need, and I know that I've had some of the colleagues that I work with, they go, hi, how can I have that kind of plug-in? I would love to have that. What kinds of extra things, like nuts and bolts, do they work on?
They kind of help. They give. Hopefully, it's structural and modular. And what that means is, so like if I meet with someone for the first time, I'll tell them we'll meet 3-4 times. And the very first day that I meet him or her is over Zoom. And I'll just say, general questions, any concerns, blah, blah, chaplain stuff. But then eventually I will walk them through every single competency and just say, okay, ITP 1, here's how you break it down. So like, for instance, I'll tell them for the one, or is it ITP 2, the one that talks about some practice that could be sociological, psychological, or what have you. Is that activity too? And I'll tell them, okay, here's how you answer this question. First, I go, mirror the question with your first sentence. After that, quote someone, say their name, call you, and, and quote them. And after you quote them, interpret in your words what they're saying. And then after that, write a sentence of, of how you utilize this in your work. And then after that, write a paragraph of a story of it coming to shape. Boom, boom, boom. Done. I don't tell them what to write. I don't say call you, I'll say whoever they want to write, but I will give them the structure of what to do and how to do it. And then it's all up to them. And that's the first one. And then they'll call back in about, we'll have a meeting in like 6 weeks, or maybe even 3 weeks if they just do section 1. And then I'll read through it. And then usually it's fine or good. There are other times they'll call, and unfortunately they call me after they've written everything, and then we'll course, and I will read it on the screen so they can see me live doing it. Because I don't do it like a teacher and cross things out or what have you, because they don't learn. I will have them on the screen looking at it live with them, and I'll be like, there are times I'll be like, bruh, no, don't say that. I know what you're doing. I understand what you're doing. I know that you're doing great stuff, but that looks really bad. Please do not put, or I'll ask, say, is this what happened? This what happened? Because if they're doing something that's kind of almost inappropriate, I will say like, you may want to talk to your, but usually they are communicating something incorrectly that will blow them up. Does that make sense? So that's what we'll do. And I'm pretty tough with this. So I will, if they wrote it without talking to me first, I will go through it and let them know if there are any landmines that may get them. Or I may say to them, okay, this is good, but you may need something in your back pocket here. And I go, you don't have to submit it, but have it in your pocket in case anybody asks you. So those are examples of what I would do. And Martha may do something different.
One of the differences of us as a mentor versus CPE educator or being in CPE is that we're not CPE. I just told a candidate that she's going for board certification today, and she's actually a colleague. And I said, while I care for you, I really care for you, and I care how you feel. But with these competencies, I don't really care how you feel. I want to see that and CPE is all about how are you feeling in this? What were you thinking? What you're feeling? I want to know that I can read and hear you describe the theory behind the competency and how you put it into practice according to the rubric. The rubric is phenomenal. And as someone who went through the process with zero writing guide or rubric was not even a blip on the screen at all. This is such a phenomenal tool for candidates and mentors that I'm mentoring and we stick to the rubric. So that is a significant difference from being CPE. I don't care. You can deal with your own feelings later. We can talk them out later. But when it comes to these competencies, this is theory and practice.
I love that. It's like Neil deGrasse Tyson is like, science doesn't care about your feelings. It's good for chaplains in this process to be aware of our feelings and our process and all that.
They don't need to be a part of the paperwork.
Going with that, like what does distinguish you an effective mentor in professional chaplaincy, and what makes somebody a great mentor?
I think it's somebody, we've talked about our mentors, one who can call out what is good, but also, and at the same time, call out the things that can be worked on and be that truth teller. My mentor, I need to hear your voice. We need to hear your voice more. So for a mentor as a mentor to a candidate to say, what, this is a great, you wrote great on this competency. This is a great reflection. And then we get to the next one and say, what, here, let's talk about this one and a landmine and be able to be confident to talk about those things. And as a mentor as well, that, we're adults in this. And if I make recommendations and they don't take them, I got to say, okay, that's on you. That's okay. God go before you, you know, because you're an adult and you can make a decision on whether or not you can take it or leave it. And as a mentor, that there needs to be that kind of understanding as well to be a strong mentor. I'll share what I know. I'll share my experience and share all of the things that have gotten me to this place. But if you don't want to take it, that's okay too.
So, as you think about candidates for certification, and all the mentors are certified chaplains, they have who are familiar with the rubric and all of that. What do you think? What is one thing that you think candidates need to exhibit or to demonstrate that they perhaps may not realize that they need?
I think they need to know they're not alone. As Michael has or just said, spoken aloud, that at conference we know that we're among our people, and I think again, my colleague who was going for interview this afternoon, I kept saying to her, it is a basic understanding of this competency. We are not looking for 20 years experience. It is okay to say, I've not had this experience. However, when I do, I think I would do this. You're brand new. And too much of the time we place upon ourselves that we need to answer these competencies as if we've had 10 years experience. And we're looking for and even if you have had 10 years experience and you're just getting around to it, it's been different. And so you've not necessarily thought about these competencies or lived within the competencies. So what they might not know is it's okay to not be way up here, but to be right here. This is where you should be right now. And that's okay.
What is one thing that every certification chaplain or candidate might need? And, I think what Martha was talking about, that may be even a good reminder for certification committee volunteers or to remind ourselves that these candidates, to meet the competency, you don't have to exceed the competency.
Martha, absolutely spot on. They're perfect. If there's anything to add, um, and she said it before, that just don't answer like you're in CPE. There are times I will read people's work that didn't meet me first. And when I read it, I'll say, this is not, as Martha said, this is not about your growing edges. This is not about, oh, I'm learning here. No, you want to go in, whether you've been doing this 2 years, 3 years, whatever, like you've been doing it for quite a few years, and show this is where I excel. This is where I did good. This with absolute clarity on showing your knowledge, absolute clarity on showing the difference that you make, absolute clarity on knowing why you do what you do. The reason I believe why so many people fail Section 2, and hear this please, people fail ITP 2, ITP or ITP 3, ITP 2, ITP 5, is because they don't understand why they do what they do. Once you understand why you do what you do, you're good to go. And that's where people trip up. I believe if you can understand why you do what you do in your answers, you'll do just fine.
One additional thing, I have another colleague who interviewed last week. And before he went, he said, I'm just going to go in and I want to learn from them. And I said, no, no, this is not the time to learn from the committee members. This is your time to showcase what you do every day. So do not go. You can learn from them later in another encounter when you meet them at conference. But right now, you need to showcase who you are and what you do.
We could talk for a long time more, but I know we're running out of time, and I want to probe you all about your vision for either chaplaincy as a whole, as a vocation, or the mentorship program, or APC as an organization. What are your hopes, if you don't mind sharing with us, or your vision for conversations that you hope are happening 5 to 10 years from now in chaplaincy?
I hope that we will be at a place where we can say, oh gosh, look at all the things that are happening for us because of the work that was done by the people before us. I say often that in my career, I am looking at less years in front of me than what is behind me. So in 10 years, I will probably be in retired status. So in 10 years, I hope the organization and I hope chaplains are saying, we don't have to fight so hard. That there have been things and programs and people in the right positions, to say to the people coming up, to my colleagues who are brand new in this, and they're coming up, that they don't have to work so hard at proving who we are and what we do. Now, how we go about that? Lots of programs and people to step up, and people, what I hope is for people to step up and not just say, well, I'm so exhausted from my work, but to find some refreshment and some life giving from participating and being a part of these new things.
Finding that margin so that you have the resources, you have the emotional resources, spiritual resources, and physical resources to be able to grow professionally and to also help others to do the same. Michael, what about you?
Thank you, Martha. One of them, and Martha alluded to it. One is it's community, community, community. I think about how going to conference, it's like seeing your family like once a year at whatever, and then that's it. You don't see each other till the next year. It shouldn't be that way for people like us that are caregivers, that are community builders, that need support. So I go back to one of the things I hope for is that we have a lot more community built throughout the year. And so one of the visions of that is the SIGs, not the ERGs, but the SIGs, is that every SIG that meets, like the bereavement one, they meet monthly. And you have one for pediatrics, one for oncology, one for whatever it is, and they talk. We need to just talk to each other and I know there's the support groups and that's great, but some people don't need the support groups. Some people need help building ministry to whoever. So if we talked more often via Zoom like this, you build the relationships. We got to do that. That's the first thing. The second thing we need to do is professional development. So thank you, Martha. You're the bomb. She's the best. But seriously, I do. I thank my God for her. So we've got the mentorship thing, and thank you, Kyle Christensen, for bringing this my way. What I hope to do, and we're not going to start yet because we got the conference. My hope is we build, and Martha, I'm going to do this, and if anyone wants to help, email us. Our emails are out there. We're going to try to create a professional development team, just like Martha and I built the mentorship. So the vision is, I think about some of the chaplains that are retired and they want to help. So you've got some, like I was a hospice chaplain in the mountains of North Carolina. I didn't know all these things I needed to know for my career or this or what have you, or struggles I was having. So my hope would be, just like we had the mentor program, they would go to the website and you'd have people, they could be working stiffs like us that may want to, like a professional coach. We'd be a professional coach, professional development person. And we'd just be volunteering. And it could be some folks like us that are in the trenches, or I say, Alicia, like you're saying, someone's wondering, like, should I go from bedside to doing this with life gift kinds of stuff, or organ donation, or should I go into leadership? I love being by the bedside. So there's that kind of coaching. But then you've got folks that are solo chaplains that are having a hard time with a colleague or the head of the facility, and they're like, I don't know what to do. They'll call. I'm a manager of my department. I'm in leadership. I can help with that. Someone's contemplating retirement. So that's the vision, is that we have something that's out there nationwide. Anybody can go to and swipe left, where they could talk to people that feel called to be a coach, feel called to get some professional development. And whether it's to talk stuff out or to help build a future or next professional steps. The last thing is, and I did this with my church because I have a Wall Street background, is and I know Doug, who's now the president, talked about, forgive me if I'm outing this, an APC foundation. Because one of the things I built for my church, when you're retired, I forgot what it's called, you have to, when you're 71 or 70 and a half, you have to take out 1/26th of your retirement every year. There may be some people that maybe had a spouse that made really good money, and so they don't need as much as their retirement, or there may be people that want to give to APC. So what if we had an APC foundation, or people in your family pass away, they get inheritance, and they're like, I want to give $5,000 to APC. That $5,000 to APC, it grows with the market. That money can help people that don't have an education budget, that cannot afford to go to conference. And all of a sudden, we're like, send in an application. We'll just see what's going on, and maybe we can pay for half of their conference, and it won't eat into our APC budget. Is because we got to go to the business meetings. Martha, thank you. You're right. Is we have a foundation that that has money, and that money grows. We can help our colleagues that don't have the funding and help them become part of the family, to show up and to be with their colleagues. So that's what I hope for, is we have a foundation, we have professional development, and we build more community.
It's so specific. I love it. You're full of ideas, Michael.
Coffee and Holy Spirit.
We've teased that usually we'll talk and I'm talking and then he's got the idea. And then I go, oh, see, that's how this is a good relationship. And then he's like, he's got the details. And then I say, okay, just tell me what we're going to do.
As we're doing this, as we're discussing all these important topics, what does it take for it to be recognized as essential and not optional in healthcare? Especially as we saw in some places during COVID, some chaplains, they were listed, they're essential. You're staying in, we need you on the front lines. And some places they were sidelined, and certain chaplains were furloughed because the institution did not see them the same way. So what would it take for chaplains to be fully recognized as essential, not optional?
I mean, it sounds so simple or juvenile or naive, but it's bold courage. It's to say, no, we're not going home because COVID, for example. No, we're not going home. For leaders, whether that's informal or formal. And I know that sounds so, because there are a lot of, it's nuanced. There's a lot of details involved, but there's that advocacy piece. There's that courage. I'm competent. And we belong. We're not an add-on. We are a part of. And until everybody involved gets that kind of mentality, then people are going to continue to get furloughed. But they also might not have the resources to know how to. So it just this entire conversation, just everything blends together. It's just, we just keep overlaying, and we need to have the courage our voice matters. And I dealt with something the other day and somebody said to me, well, I don't know if the doctor's going to do this. And I said, well, historically, the doctor does it. This is whether they want to or not, I can't do it. You can't do it, but the doctor has to. And they said, well, we don't know if they're going to do it. And I said, well, let me know if they don't, because I'll go to, and I named the CMO, because I have made it a point to go and talk to him. I'm a staff chaplain. I've made it a point to go talk to him. And also, when I catch wind that something's happening with a family member, I'll talk to him about how he is. How are you doing with said family member? So connect on another level other than work. So until we get that bold courage, and that I think is encouraging each other. And as Michael said, in community, and not just one time a year, but we continue to build each other up, and to say, yes, you can, and yes, you need to, and we need to do it, or we're going to go extinct. We will go extinct. And stop using fluff language that nobody knows what. That's just another pet peeve. Stop using fluff language that clinicians don't understand, nor do they care to understand. Ron Oliver, one of the best people, presence.
Oh, please give us some examples, because it warms the...
Well, presence, provided compassionate presence. Well, what does that mean? Because the housekeeper provides compassionate presence too. So how are we different? And Ron Oliver says he wishes that word would just go out of the language of chaplains. because the IV pole is present, but it's doing something.
And if you're charting, I sure hope you're present.
It drives me crazy. Or I listened and stop using, because it's not helping our cause. Aim who we are and what we are doing, what we did. We're not always being, we are also doing. And how do those two, I mean, clearly.
And also, what happened? Like, so you did this, cool. What happened as a result, or what do you anticipate as that? Sorry, I'm preaching to the choir, but geez.
Yeah, and because we will become extinct. We continue to just use kind of this kind of fluffy language, feel good language, but yet we expect to be taken seriously. And people say, "So what did you do? What did you really do?" And we can't even explain it.
I provided life review. How so? Like, with what purpose? Where are you going with that?
Yeah.
Michael, did you want to add anything?
Some of it is self-imposed suffering. You do this language that's not, and at times it is the fault of the chaplain. If you are not learning how to speak in a way that others can hear, doing the fluff language or whatever it is, it's on you. So we're talking about, as they talk about either marketing, sales, whatever it is, just like we have to learn about other religions, or just how we learn about trauma, you may have to get a book on sales, or and I'm not kidding, I'm not trying to be funny. Go work in the mall where you've got to sell to communicate like that. Because if we use this fluffy stuff, if we're not engaging in a way where people understand, we will never be seen as part of the community. And I know it's not that way for everyone, but for the folks that are struggling and suffering, sometimes it is you. And I'm not blaming things. I'm not being victim. Maybe you don't know how to, and that's okay. I didn't know either, but I learned. I had to learn. And even if there are challenges, I've had all chaplains of every religion, every sexual orientation, every gender identity across the board that are all phenomenal chaplains. Where what somebody would say it gets in the way, they've overcome that because they figured out the community that they're in to help all staff. So that's number one. Second thing is leadership. If you are a manager, director, and or whatever, and you do not know the CEO of your or CNO of your facility, I don't know what you're thinking. It's not okay. You should, Martha said this, you should know the names of the children or the spouses or the grandchildren of the senior leaders and their favorite sports teams, if that's what they like, or the stuff that they do, hobbies in the garden or what have you. My CEO, who's an incredible leader, is military and army. So there are times I may give messages that are military related, even though we're not a VA, we're just a hospital, because I want him to know that I'm paying attention to him. So the other thing you have to do is you must know the senior leadership. The third thing is chaplains need to be seen like cybersecurity. We're not some app. You cannot exist in this world without cybersecurity. What does that mean? We're something that's there that may not always be moving all the time, but we're there to prevent issues. We're there to help the health of the organization. And so if they knew that with chaplains, I think you have less lawsuits. That saves money. I can guarantee you one chaplain will save thousands, maybe millions of dollars. Hopefully hire 10 chaplains, because the people that are angry because of their grief, because of their own toxic family story, if we go in there and we calm them down, we listen to them, we let them vent, we meet them with their complicated grief, they won't take it out on our facility with a loss unless they deserve it. But we'll stop that. Nurse retention, when nurses feel heard, you have less moral distress, less nurses leaving, less doctors leaving. We're good for the bottom line. And lastly, my other vision is I talked about professional coaching. One thing I want to do, and if anybody else wants to do this, I do actually. I want to see a chaplain. I want to retire as a chaplain, but I actually want to get a certification in professional development. And so my vision is, so, and anybody can do this, is I think about nursing leaders or any kind of leaders in a hospital that needs some growth. Maybe the VPs get a professional coach, but what if we had that underneath our belt? We're not just good listeners. We don't only understand trauma and family dynamics and religions and can help with family meetings. We actually know, not all of us, not everybody does. Maybe 5% of people do this. But what if we had underneath our belt professional development, professional coaching, and we helped our nursing leaders, our social worker leaders, our kitchen staff, our engineering teams, when they're going through challenges, we're not only good chaplains, we really are professional coaches. And these bean counters, these leaders of our facilities need to see, oh my God, I cannot let my chaplains go. They help this place run smoothly. They help people. They help with retention. They help the lawsuits down, and they make my leaders become better leaders. They are almost the last people we should let go of. So it's the fluffy language. It is being someone that's irreplaceable. It is possible, but we have to figure out what we need to do to become irreplaceable.
This has been such a rich conversation, and I really appreciate you all taking the time to talk with us. And we always like to leave with this last question, which is what's giving you life these days? What's filling your cup?
There are many things, family, exercise, just all those things. Right now, though, one of the things is that my husband and I, have a soon to be 23-year-old son who was in college for a few years and struggled quite a bit in finding his space and ended up quitting his third year and actually was not going to be invited back for the senior year. A combination of quitting and getting kicked out. One of the life giving things for me is watching my son find his place. So, he enlisted in the Navy and he's in nuclear school in Charleston, South Carolina. So he'll finish in December and then find himself on a submarine, which is frightening and but also a source of pride as a parent. It's a very hard program. He says, all I just want to do is graduate. 2.5 to stay alive is the mantra. And there's reason behind that. But it's just looking at him and just knowing, if you're a parent or you watch somebody who struggled and then all of a sudden you see them finding themselves after this period of the desert and he's come out of the desert and that is life-giving to hear him when he calls and he's happy. And Michael's life-giving too. The work with Michael, I'm telling you, we have fun. We have so much fun. We we have so much fun, and it really is life-giving. It is enriching for me, for sure. I don't say that just because 'cause I'm kissing up to him or anything.
But no, I think we've always been encouraging each other until yesterday when we started talking smack about baseball teams.
Did, well, and we will continue to do that, and it's all out of love and maybe a little bit of not love.
Oh man, are Yankees, Michael?
Yes.
Red Sox all the way. Yankees, the Devils team.
Yes. For me, uh, it's been a hard couple of weeks. And something that I've already loved that's been more meaningful, and go figure, a Christian pastor can say this, is The Chosen. There's this series on, I mean, it's everywhere, but it's free on Amazon Prime, and it's a story of the disciples of Jesus, and it's like they get it right. It's like the writers took CPE, because it's not all this religious doctrine dogma. It is so compassionate and so understanding. There's even this one quote that I needed to hear where Jesus said to Thomas, "Sometimes following me will be crushing for you." I mean, how many things will say that? So The Chosen has been incredible. The other one, which completely unrelated, is CrossFit. I go to a CrossFit gym, and I love it because the leader of it, he's a sergeant in the army. IED hit him, all these things happened, and so he understands chaplains. And oh my gosh, even with the women, there's so much testosterone and F-bombs and all this. It is just so different from my day. It's just, and I no, I don't say any F-bombs. They call me Padre. They know I'm a pastor. So I don't talk, that way. But it's just so freeing, because during COVID, I got so burnt out so often because I wasn't working out. I wasn't getting the energy out. So CrossFit's been great. And kids too, as Mark was saying, my son is 10, plays baseball, and it's just a blast. And my daughter, who's 13, is doing all these things, from music to reading to all these things that are very life giving. And when it comes to, the parenting thing or the CrossFit thing, I can be myself. And with the chosen, I get fed. So that those are all very life-giving.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. And it's been a pleasure to have you both on this podcast and have this conversation. And we actually went a little bit longer than we usually do, just because I think we covered some very important topics. So thank you so much for taking the time and connecting with us.
Thank you. This has been great.
This has been fun. This has been fun. We love this podcast. It's all the voices you have out there, and I've learned a lot of things. So thank you for doing this. I hope this goes on.
And now it's time for the non-anxious presence with John
And Elise. Well, we will try to keep this short, John, because that this is a very long episode already. But there was just so much in this conversation that is stimulating and encouraging, inspiring for me. But one takeaway that I'll mention is, well, first of all, I just want to say I love Michael's enthusiasm and just how he's exploding with ideas. But a takeaway for me also is Martha talking about how we should not wait to receive an invitation, but the encouragement to have bold courage, to speak up, to know that our voice matters. It's kind of interesting that she brought that up, because I've been thinking a lot about not waiting for an invitation. Recently, because I'm preaching at my church this Sunday, and I'm going to use an illustration from when I was starting out as a chaplain. And that's exactly what the illustration is about. And it's because when I was in residency, I had a really tough time with cold call visits, because I thought, well, they've not invited me to come and be with them. Like, if it's a crisis, if there's a request, if there's a consult, if I'm on call, that's different. But when they haven't invited me to come, do I really want to disturb them? Is it going to offend them? Is it, to knock on their door or whatever? And I wrestled with that for a long time. And I finally came to this. I think it was really like in my wrestling with my faith and with God, with that, I came away thinking that God doesn't wait for an invitation. God is already there, and God is seeking us out. And so for me to do that theologically, it was a way for me to say I am emulating God or following God in this way of seeking out the people. And then outside, because of that, some of the most rewarding visits that I've had with patients have been when it was just a run-of-the-mill, like, cold call visit, because they feel like, oh, God must have sent you to me. Like, to know that somebody, they didn't think to ask, or they didn't know to ask for a chaplain, but somehow I found them, or, so feeling like God must have sent you to me. So anyway, what she was talking about helped me connect the dots about, okay, what does it look like for us as a profession to not wait for an invitation, but to really just do the work of service.
And that was one of the key takeaways for me as well. For example, when Michael was talking about how some of the shortcomings that he's found with certain chaplains, of course, is we, of course, need to be trained in trauma, but also we need to learn how to tell our stories better to those who make the decisions. The people, the C-suites, but being able to tell it in a way that we speak their language. I'd worked in the military. I'd been a chaplain for psychological operations, which is all about marketing and telling your story to other people groups outside of the United States. It's actually illegal for PSYOP to do PSYOP to American citizens. So just full transparency. But being able to do good, effective marketing and speaking the language of those in the C-suite, those who are making the decisions, but also not just ignoring the people who are at the front lines, the people who are in the ICUs, the trauma bays, the palliative care, the people who are actively seeing what chaplains can do, and then teaching we actually had a training for this about 3 months ago on key talking points, just small talking points that we can use and just say, did you know that the more the chaplains are utilized, that actually helps with your resilience? Do you know why I'm here? I'm actually here for you as well. Did you know that? just small things, and having the people who are at the front lines, who are at the unit level, and also being able to tell our stories so that they're able to tell the stories to those in the C-suite and to their supervisors. For me, um, it's that beautiful piece on making us so that people understand that we are value added team members. So that was very encouraging to me.
It's always also really fun for me to listen to the stories of how people found chaplaincy, just the variety of gifts that people bring to chaplaincy. So as we think about, just this whole conversation, future of chaplaincy, mentorship, work of presence, how to speak to that in ways that make sense. Um, we've been reminded of this quote by Parker Palmer, and we'll finish with this. He says, vocation does not come from willfulness. It comes from listening. Listen to your life, as he would say. So thank you all for listening to another episode, speaking of listening. For those who have left positive reviews, we really appreciate you. If you have not left a review yet, that's really helpful for us. And of course, sharing the podcast with your networks. We hope you have a wonderful springtime. Spring is here.
Woo! Thank you all.
Bye.